Hey YouTube, this is Ben Kissel. I know it's very late. Probably just at least one more video tonight. I'm going to be talking about probably something I haven't really talked about as much before. So at the outset, I'm just going to say this. I'm pretty certain that I am not. I'm not the most hardworking of people in the world. But I think I'm more on that end of hard workers than not people that don't work hard. I think I'm more of a hard worker overall. And I'm starting this video out with this idea of hard work because what I do, not just music instruction, but music composition and music performance and music transcription, and I don't know how many other things in the realm of music and other related things it's hard. It takes a lot of focus, a lot of energy. I have to eat very nutritious foods, and I have to get enough rest on a fairly regular basis just to be able to function. It seems very I don't want to be so self-centered, but I don't know if you guys sometimes understand what it's like to be a musician in especially more of a freelance or classical or not popular vein, but even a lot of folks in the popular arena are in similar kind of territory. Bubblegum pop is an insult to music a lot of times. Not always, but it often is. As well as a lot of other kinds of music that seem to be popular these days. It's all insults to music. It's not music, it's trash. So before I'll say it again, it's trash. But I wanted to focus on this video regarding what it takes to be a good musician. And I'm going to talk about some stuff, again, that I haven't talked about as much before. Just to give you an idea, rough idea of how I've grown as a person in this arena. Before I was 8, I was immersed. Whenever I listened to music, I was immersed in it. But that was just something I did automatically. I wasn't really aware that I was immersed in the music when I was, but by immersed I mean it was influencing every part of me, all the music I listened to when I was younger. And I just, as far as harmonies and as far as a lot of stuff, it just came very naturally to me because I was always absorbing it. I was always pondering it on some level. Different kinds of sounds and harmonies. And good composers tend to be that way. If you think that way, chances are you might have a lot of abilities in composition. By the time when I was 8, I started piano lessons. There was that whole rigmarole, right? And which developed into something much greater as I got older. And then there was primary choir and church choirs. And there was trumpet, played trumpet in band at 11 years old. And then switched to horn when I was 14. And there's horn lessons and piano lessons as well. There were many opportunities to perform. And there was, you know, then I became a music major in college, and so on and so forth. And the level at which I needed to practice grew and grew and grew. The expectations grew and grew and grew. It got harder. It didn't get easier. It got harder. And so by the time I was at least teaching, I was even taking lessons at some points as well, improving my playing. But it was hard. There are sometimes it was especially hard. One of the hard things I've had to do was deal with people that should have known better, but acted like we'll just say they acted reprehensibly, and they should have known better. Were my senior, should have been more mature than me, farther along, and I guess in certain regards regarding performance at least. So I've had to deal with that. That's a long story. I might have mentioned it earlier, but I've had to deal with a lot of different kind of personalities and characters, and it still will. That's also tough. It's challenging. Oh, very much so. Just life doesn't get any easier. It always gets harder. And so sometimes I wonder, but your capacity grows to handle this stuff. So sometimes I wonder with my students, how are they going to turn out? And it's a little bit more like, it's always, if they have a disability of some kind, learning wise, then it's a different kind of deal, but depending on the severity of it. But if they got all cylinders going, especially if they have the higher IQ, what can they do in music? And there are times that I wonder if I'm being tough enough with my students. I'm certain that I'm not being as tough on them as some other teachers are, but I'm also extremely certain that I'm being tougher on them than many other teachers are. And I don't just like to go to teach lessons and teach casually or lazily. I have to be involved in the lesson. Otherwise, why am I getting paid for it? A good teacher is a good listener, especially regarding music being performed. It's everything. The better the listener I am, the more that I'm listening to what the student is saying and what they're playing, as well as my own skill level in these different areas of music, the better kind of teacher I am. That's what it comes down to. I'm trying to explain something. You try to go with the most effective route. I think effectiveness is what we should be about. But at times, it's also ought to be more inspirational, I would think. It doesn't have to be every lesson, but it's great if it could be, or if it is. There's a student I have that literally every lesson is just sublime, because she's my probably best student and she practices the hardest. and she plays with a lot of emotion. I look forward to teaching her. Oh, definitely. Definitely. But I have more than one student like that. I teach wonderful folks, adults, teens, kids. But I wonder at times about things like practice habits and motivation to play. And are they getting out of music what they wanted to get out of it? Or are they finding that it's harder than they realized? And they're like, oh boy. And I keep looking back at my own life and how I progressed. Because as a teacher, that's all you can do. You can only ultimately speak from your own experience. You can always teach out of methods and things that other people have written. But when a student asks you certain questions, you have to draw from your own experience. I mean, if you draw from someone else's experience, that's anecdotal, that's an interesting story, but it's not as meaningful to that student because that other person is not there and they're not the teacher. Simply when I learned how to read sharps and flats and key signatures and play different keys, or when I learned how to play different rhythms in left right hands. Any of those things, both left right hand combined, any of those things, how did I get there? It's so much more meaningful to explain how I got there to a student than to explain how some other person figured out how to read music. But I wonder about the work ethic of Generation Z. And I know it's a generalization. I know it's always an individual issue. I sometimes wonder if the strength of the United States is falling because Generation Z, or many people in general, are a lot lazier than they used to be. I think you guys probably are sensing that too on some level. If we had a nation where everybody was a little bit more apt to put in extra effort, more than 100% every day, when everybody at least valued things like being honest, I mean truly honest, basically if our nation functioned like it did in the early 1800s. And it might seem like I'm just talking about white America. Well, many people are so quick to judge things like racism, but they don't realize that most people that were white back then had the kind of character that, in other respects, other aspects of character that was very admirable. The majority of white America, not just white America, black America too. There are people of great character back then who made extraordinary sacrifices, who worked insanely hard. I just wonder. And I noticed things like work ethic and how people treat each other. I notice things like, what do people value? What do people want to create? This world does feel very wicked, increasingly so. One of the reasons why it feels so wicked is because people are seem like they're getting more cruel, more lazy, more isolated, more judgmental, more juvenile and fickle. Not as grown up, not as mature, not as admirable. Everybody's a critic. I don't know if I'm talking about Americans or the entire world here. Probably more like Americans. America is increasingly under fire because we have more and more people that are lazy and stupid and selfish and ignorant. Why? I don't know. Maybe people need to start reading more often. Maybe people need to experience real hard times. We need to get some of this LGBTQ, some of that rhetoric. We need to, I don't know, what am I saying? I'm saying life seems very distorted right now. Very, very distorted from how it ought to be. And all this is definitely impacting people that are younger, especially in a negative way. I don't know how other music teachers are faring, but I don't know, man. I just don't know. I'm a little bit worried. I see a lot of behaviors that, to me, seem to reinforce laziness. It's easy to say that the Asian students are the hardest working of the bunch. Well, okay, yeah. Yep. I think that's probably an accurate statement on the whole. But you still do have those that from other ethnicities that work hard. It's just at music. It's just maybe there's just a greater temptation to not do so these days. And I don't know. I often wonder if Generation Z is weird in some way. Sometimes they seem overly silly to me, not sober-minded enough. That's a very off-putting thing, and I felt that for quite a while. And whenever there's someone who's younger, who's a more sober-minded character, that's a person I want to teach music lessons to if they want to take lessons. The silly kids are fine so long as they can, on some level, buckle down and work hard. You know, music takes a great deal of discipline and focus and concentration for long periods of time, insane levels of focus and concentration, especially if you're a hornist. It's one of the most demanding things that I can think of. Maybe being in the special forces or Marines or something. Generally, the armed forces, the more rigorous kinds of things might be up there as well. Maybe harder in a way, depending on what it is we're talking about. But if life is easy, something is not right. I've often wondered if there's more truth to that than I realize. And you cannot, the farther you go in music, the harder it is to get better. It absolutely requires more effort, more concentration, more focus. And so those students that have the greatest levels of concentration and focus, as well as the innate talent and work ethic, the hardest workers, they tend to do the best. They put in the most time. They make the best use of practice time. And music is competitive. You can work your butt off, still not win auditions. It's punishing. It's soul draining. You think that you had what you might term friends in college that were musicians as well. And maybe you did on some level. But you often find that they were kind of fake. You often realize who were the true friends, or who were you learn these things over time, bit by bit. You come to understand that everybody's imperfect, including professors. And while it's bad form to criticize your professors, you have to realize that they probably made mistakes when they were teaching you, and that's okay. At least if they were good instructors, their hearts were in the right place. And most of the things they taught were probably effective. They did help you. If you worked hard, especially. Okay. I just want my students to know, and I'll explain this to them again, that it always takes more effort as you go up the levels to get better. It's easier to go from level 1 to level 2 compared to level 4 to level 5, compared to level whatever to level whatever after that. To get to the point where you can make money, people will pay money to hear you play. That takes insane levels of practice and discipline over years and years and years. And it's a different matter entirely than the mass-produced pop garbage that revolves around sex appeal, or many people's sex appeal, or sexual, whatever, youth. But all the other things that are kind of worldly, I guess you could say. I don't even know if it's sex appeal. I don't even know what's going on with that stuff. I don't find most pop musicians attractive. It's a different deal altogether. It's not devoid of meaning or value, but it's lower, much, much lower the totem pole. Much, much lower. It's a different deal. And it's hard to honestly express oneself. Just like it's hard to do that in martial arts. It's hard to do that in music. Because when a person does that in music and they're criticized, it's basically the same thing as someone going right to the heart, attacking right to the heart of a person when they truly express themselves musically. And only the most sensitive in a good way, sensitive of musicians, people understand this. And only the music that contains this kind of performance and composition is of the most refined quality, and that kind of music must be preserved and cherished and emphasized, even over the technical virtuosity required of some pieces. This is the most valuable kind of music, where you can honestly express yourself. Right? I mean, the technical stuff is great too. It's certainly leagues better than other stuff that's very trite and stupid. Ultimately, just not very deep. Yeah. I think that everybody in the entire world needs to step up their game as much as they can. We all need to push ourselves a little harder to do better at whatever it is we're doing. The answer is in what is harder and what is good for us and our souls, and good for other people too. That's where our answers lie. Doing what's hard and doing what's good for the people and for ourselves. Not in what's doing what's easy and what only serves ourselves and does not serve other people. That's not the answer. If someone has to just abandon music to pursue other things in life, I understand. And just like a lot of other teachers, I want to focus more on people that are going to be involved in music their entire lives, not just a small part of their life. I understand that deeply now. But we have to let people be people, don't we? Everyone's free to make their own choices. Okay, leave the thoughts and comments below. Catch you later. Take care.